Hello, I'm Margie Brickley, a Bank Street College of Education professor. This is part 2 of our early childhood series focusing on observation and reflection as a way to grow as a teacher. You're about to see scenes of everyday life in a classroom of 4-year-olds. After each scene, I'll lead a discussion with our panel of early childhood educators who are studying at the Graduate School at Bank Street, Janelle Barth, Josie Paul, and Jack Woodhull. If you're catching us now, you can go to part 1, where we introduce the value of close observation and reflective conversations. Part 1 of this series begins with video clips showing classroom routines and transitions. Here in part 2, a set of scenes takes a close look at children's dramatic play. Young children often express intense feelings through their play. This can evoke strong feelings in teachers, too. After the clip, we'll see what we can learn from our observations.
Baby, I will baby face. I will punch your eyes out over your tongue.
Are you,
And I will punch your bear into the garbage baby bin. Look, I'm sitting on it. And now I will.
Are you Catherine?
Sit on you.
Are you Bonet? This is Ariana.
And now I'm gonna bite your head off.
Hi, Bonet.
And now I am gonna bite your eyeballs. And now I'm gonna. And now I am gonna. My book is red. Bite your throat.
Keep it inside your car because it's time to show and tell.
I big hook throat.
Really?
I big hook throat.
So let's talk about the big feelings that we saw in that clip, but also the affect that the children had, and the playfulness, and what you noticed about all of that in one package.
I feel like dramatic play gives children the opportunity to do things they know that they normally wouldn't do or wouldn't have the chance to do or they can't do. The way they were playing with the babies, I mean, like they're babies, like they obviously know that in real life, if it was a real baby, they wouldn't be punching the baby and throwing the baby everywhere.
It was very lighthearted and they were laughing and giggling the whole time, so it didn't feel malicious at all. It just kind of felt like an exploration of what these actions mean. It was just really fascinating to watch.
And I think that clip is a great argument for the importance of really closely observing and recording what you're seeing. Often with children's play, even as they get older, there's often such violent language and imagery sometimes that if you're just taking that away from what you're seeing, you may end up with a very different idea of what you're seeing, whereas that was clearly, it seemed a fairly lighthearted moment, and there was collaboration. You know, one had an idea and the other kind of took it and ran with it. I know one thing I think we all take from Bank Street is the idea that you're paying close attention to what you're seeing and thinking deeply about it, and that's sort of what you're trained to do, especially around children of this age.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about how an outside observer might look at this video and kind of cringe or be like really worried about these children's lives, but like you said, just the fact that like you really have to observe the kids, know who they are. If I saw other troubling behaviors outside of play, then I would be more concerned.
One of the things you brought up, in terms of development, was the idea of power, right? What do we see in power play with children in this age group?
Yeah, and certainly following up, you might want to. Questions you might ask after seeing that are, do either of them have new siblings, or if this were a kind of play that kept popping up?
Yeah, I agree. For some children, having new sibling could be very difficult for them, and sometimes they don't know how to express their emotions about that. And so I think through play you can really see if that's kind of something at home is going on there.
This next clip shows that sometimes children need help moving their play along. When should a teacher step in? When should she allow children to direct their own play?
dancing?
I would
I
love.
feel bored.
What's your song?
I would love to see you do like a puppet show with a storyline, like where they're doing something or going somewhere. I think he's eating breakfast, but you have two hands. You can like pretend that you're one on this hand and the other, and they can like talk to each other, maybe go somewhere.
Oh, hi, friend Karen.
Kieran, finish what you have in your mouth, okay?
Oh, no, you did it.
Careful with the puppet.
I did it.
Got it.
Oh, hi, friend Karen. What you doing? No, you need to do this. What you doing? No, you need to open and close, open and close, open and close.
Let's talk a little bit about what we think the teachers' goals were here and what the children's agenda might have been in this dramatic play scene.
I mean, the one boy really seems to respond to a bit of modeling about. I'd be curious to know how often they had played with puppets. You know, when the teacher is saying, well, I'd like to see this, see you try this with your puppets. The one boy clearly absorbs a lot of that and starts, you know, modeling it for his friend and trying to take that and run with it, that idea.
The other thing that stood out for me was that she gave him prompts without actually jumping into the play and directing the play. She just said, here, try this idea or try that idea, but didn't actually jump in and start playing with him. So she still let it be a child-led activity.
Yeah, I think for dramatic play, it's important for the teacher to be kind of like a facilitator, to kind of like give the kid ideas and kind of show them what they can do, like give them examples instead of just saying, oh, why don't you go and play, or jumping in, like you said.
What did you see in the video that the teacher did, and what do your experiences tell you about what's just the right amount of scaffolding in these situations?
I think, as you said, she kind of has a light touch. It's just a few seconds, really, of her even just suggesting, I'd like to see this, and sort of planting that seed. And sometimes that's really all it takes. And then, yeah, and then the idea grows in their own minds. So.
She also did a little bit of modeling too when she said one on this hand, one on that hand, so that it was clear what she meant by you could do this on your own.
Yeah, and I like the wording she used when she was trying to describe what he can do. I'd like to see you do this. Not saying, oh, you should do this, but I'd like to see it, giving him some more ideas.
What happens when the teacher tries to help these boys put on a puppet show? What thoughts do you have about the girl who wants a dinosaur show?
How does your story end? The puppet show.
They're gonna eat themselves.
And then they can go, okay, so let's see that. Are you ready? And is this the sound that you're making, the music for the background of the show? Tin, 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 like that? All right. Do you want the boxes together or separate? Fix the way you want your box. I'm going to see your dinosaur next, okay? Your dinosaur. Are you ready?
They're done eating themselves.
Are you ready to take it from the
Not like
top?
that. No, I'm gonna make them eat.
Okay, I'm going to clean up breakfast and I'm going to come to see your show.
So we saw more examples of the teachers scaffolding the play for the children, and more examples of the children, not only the two children we saw before, but now there's a third child involved. Can you tell me what you noticed in that scene?
I noticed that the teacher, she was trying to help them put everything together. I remember one of the boys were making a noise, and then she didn't tell him to stop. She said, is that the music that you're gonna use for the, is that the sounding? And then with the boxes, she kind of said, so is this how you want your materials set up? So kind of trying to make them bring everything to life and kind of trying to make them show her what they're going to do, plan it out.
Yeah, I agree. I also saw that she, in her guiding, she didn't stop them and like she said, are you ready? Are you ready? But when they continued to do, continued on with their show, she didn't say, okay, stop and let's take it from the beginning. She just let them continue where they were. So she really let it be child guided.
Yeah, having done a puppet show in a kindergarten, it's one of those instances where you realize the gulf between what you know about puppet shows and puppetry and what children know. And even when she used the phrase, take it from the top, that could be such a meaningless phrase.
Yeah.
And even the idea that you're connecting your puppets to a linear story that has an end, I'd been interested in another choice there could have been to allow the girl to have her dinosaur be a puppet, perhaps, in that, I think we know that there are rules to puppet shows that children aren't aware of. It wouldn't even occur to them that a dinosaur couldn't be in a puppet show. So that's one thing, that's what I took away from that.
She did acknowledge her, though, which was nice. So she did say, I know that you want to do a dinosaur, so we'll do that next. But I agree that there could have been a way for her to work the child into the play.
Sometimes as teachers, we have this idea in our head and we want it to come to life. But sometimes we have to remember it's the children, it's their puppet show. So if they want to do something a certain way that's not normally how a puppet show should go, we should roll with it.
Right, yeah.
Our last clip shows a common challenge, supporting children's play and balancing our attention among children.
What's your name? Friendly Mason Shark? Mason Shark is helping you, Kieran. Want me to be the mama?
You have one like me, look.
Good morning, baby dolphin.
I'm gonna eat you little baby dolphins one by one.
Oh, why would you want to eat us, Mr. Mason Shark?
You're a whale.
I'm a dolphin.
You eat fish. I eat meat.
So that's why you need to eat meat?
I will. Yes. I only eat dolphins and other things like. Oh my
Let's go swimming in the ocean.
I will too.
So this teacher is trying to manage a lot in terms of the attention of the children. Where do you think she was successful and where was it more challenging?
It certainly seems like a challenge when she's trying to have that moment maybe with the little girl and they're playing with the dolphins and then the boy comes over and that happens continuously where, what do you do when another student kind of comes in and maybe barges into play between two other students or between a student and a teacher? That's a tricky moment to negotiate.
I feel like as a teacher, I want to kind of like share my attention with the kids, but sometimes it can be challenging. But I like the way that teacher she didn't ignore the other child or say, I'm playing with this student right now, can you please wait? She kind of let him also join into playing with everyone, so I thought that was good.
I also noticed that she didn't let the game change completely, so she still was able to interact with the girl, but meanwhile still acknowledged the boy when he said, I'm going to eat you. And she didn't say, oh no, that's not what we're playing, or oh, I don't like that. She said, oh, why do you want to eat us? And brought him into the play that way. So like, I agree that he did kind of barge in and change the play, but it felt overall that she handled the interaction pretty well. That would be a really tricky spot to be put in as a teacher.
Have you had experiences with, sometimes some children take up more attention than other children? What have you found is particularly helpful in your own thinking about that?
I think in that situation, figuring out how to incorporate the child who's coming into the play, similar to what this teacher did without completely changing the nature of the play. So with 4-year-olds, they don't necessarily play strictly by rules at that point, but you can kind of explain like, oh, this is what we're doing right now, so what part would you like to be in this, or how can we include you in this? So giving them an in without it just kind of turning into the game that the other child wants to play.
Because as teachers too, we're also people, and sometimes I have a very visceral reaction sometimes to some of the interactions you may see are, someone who maybe seems like they crave more attention or end up getting more attention. And part of me always wants to give more attention to the person that's asking for it the least and demanding it the least, because you sometimes worry that they're missing out on the attention.
So thinking about dramatic play and the scenes that we saw, what are some of your takeaways from this?
Dramatic play is so important in early childhood development. It's a tool that allows them to explore their power, they explore their imagination, and it really helps them to connect to their classmates.
I feel like as a teacher, it's really important to try to scaffold and facilitate dramatic play or any type of play without having too much of a say into how they're playing.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for little suggestions and small directions can sort of allow them to really run with it.
That ends part 2 of our early childhood series. In part 3, we look at early childhood materials. And for more information about our graduate programs, go to bankstreet.edu.